Okay. Anybody want to give this one a go?
Yeah, you can start. 31. So we have a punch biopsy and non-acral skin.
Is the, hey Jess? Go ahead. The
Um,
sound's working and everything?
so punch biopsy, non-acral skin, and we have a like diffuse infiltrate, like kind of lob nodular or lobular like infiltrate.
Yeah, it's
It's
kind of
superficial.
nodular. I agree.
Yeah.
Nods are superficial indeed.
Yeah, and it affects adnexa also. From this power looks pretty much mostly lymphocytic, but it also looks that there are clearer cells.
Good.
So high power looks more lymphohistiocytic. Lymphohistiocytic.
Yeah, in some areas, like granulomatous, where histiocytes predominate.
Yeah.
Good.
So after I saw that, I started looking for a bug.
Good.
I thought it could be like an infectious process. I couldn't see much and like a microorganism, and I thought this could be like a mycobacterial process.
Any particular microbacterial process?
I thought it could be Hansen.
Yeah, you thought right. And these are probably Virchow cells here. They're subtle, but they're most likely histiocytes that have foamy cytoplasm in them. And if you were to do a fight stain, it would be strongly positive. The other thing that's a little bit helpful here too is notice that these granulomas are elongated.
Yeah.
And that's because they're following neurovascular bundles.
Yeah.
So there should be a nerve somewhere in here, but these things,
I couldn't
blood
really.
nerves, yeah, they chew them up so quick that they're gone away.
Yeah.
So that's why you probably couldn't actually see any visual nerves. The other thing is it's got the kind of band-like infiltrate at the top a little bit with the grin zone.
Yeah.
That's also helpful in Hansen's. It's one of the few things that can give you a lichenoid, not like truly lichenoid because it doesn't actually obscure the neural infiltration, but band-like infiltrate of histiocytes. So it's kind of lichenoid granulomatous, quote unquote.
And it usually don't spares. You mean it spares the
There's the epidermis. Yeah, you get that little grin zone here. So anyway, it's a nice example of Hansen's. I think we have some clinical photos. So we don't have to toggle anything now, right? So these are just some good pictures of it. Okay, we had that case here we talked about in Grand Rounds where they talked about the La Bonita form of Hansen's, meaning they get so much infiltrate that their skin, they don't have any wrinkles anymore. So anyway, so this is sort of, this would maybe be borderline Lepromatous leprosy because it's got quite a bit of inflammation also. In polar Lepromatous, it's just almost pure histiocytes. So, all right, very good. Let's go on to the next case.
Alright, we have a shave of a little papule.
Good.
Not a whole lot of infiltrate going on in the dermis, doesn't look like. Looks like there's a lot of mucin.
Yeah.
It's just infiltrated mucin. So I'd say a little, maybe papular mucinosis.
It's a papule with mucin, you're right. And so when you see that, there's a differential diagnosis of a number of items.
Maybe Trichilemmal myxedema.
It certainly could be that. Exactly. Now there's two, when you get mucin in the skin, it can occur in a lot of different ways. So you can get some where it's sort of like a lake of mucin, like here. So everything in the dermis is replaced with mucin. And that you see in things like Trichilemmal myxedema, like you mentioned. You also see it in sometimes in dermatomyositis, they get massive mucin, or in lupus erythematosus, massive mucin deposition. They can be papular in that condition also. In scleromyxedema, papular mucinosis, you can get this much mucin, but usually you get fibroblast plus mucin, and it's not quite to this degree. It can be, but that's rare. And then cutaneous myxomas, you can get massive quantities of mucin. And then you get mucin within the process of an inflammatory skin disease, like the relatively small amount of interstitial mucin that you see in GA and lupus, REM, those situations. You get mucin in neoplasms, like in mucinous carcinoma, in chondroid syringoma, In breast cancer, some of those have mucin in it, and then you get epithelial mucin, like say a follicular mucinosis. It's a different kind of mucin. It's more acidic than this hyaluronic acid. You get mucin in the goblet cells of like salivary gland cancers or GI cancers that spread in the skin. So there's a lot of different patterns of mucin that can occur in the skin. So this is massive lake of mucin. And so if I told you this was a solitary skin-colored papule that came in and grew out basal cell, what would you think it would be?
Maybe either follicular mucinosis or myxoma.
Yeah, cutaneous myxoma. Follicular mucinosis is going to be within the follicle. So this is what it looks like clinically, the little small skin-colored papule. Nobody gets these right. They all think they're either neurofibromas or skin tags or something like that, or basal cell. They biopsy it looks like this. They should have biopsied the melanoma that was sitting next to it. But might not be melanoma. Anyway, so it's you'll read about stuff that it says mucin, and things, but it's kind of important to realize that there's a lot of different ways mucin can be present within the skin and the neoplasms. So you wouldn't want to confuse those with one another. Okay.
So we
The
don't.
Carney complex too, by the way, I recommend learning about that. They get atrial myxomas in that situation, cardiac myxomas. What was that?
Without the clinical information of being just a solitary papule.
You wouldn't really. I mean, if you said pretibial myxedema here, the only reason I would probably say it wasn't that's because it doesn't have any stasis, altered blood vessels. But this is the kind of dense mucin deposit you see with that. So anyway, it's a nice example, and it doesn't really mean much of anything except possibly it could be associated with Carney complex. All right, number 33. All right.
Okay, we have a shave of what looks like a papule, maybe a pedunculated papule, given the architecture.
Excellent.
Pretty benign looking from low power. The epidermis is maybe a little papillomatous, or just, not quite papillomatous, but it's undulating quite significantly.
Actually, I like that papillomatous, meaning like nipples. So there's digitated, which means it's like fingers. So those are really elongated. They're sort of almost like spikes, if you will, sticking up. When they sort of look like little rounded papules, multiple of those kind of on the epidermal surface like that, then you use the word papillate. And I think that's a good word for this. And that's helpful because you don't see papillomatosis in every skin lesion. It's seen in a relatively few number of lesions, so that can help you.
Papillomatosis can be seen in carp, SKs, epidermal nevi.
Any others?
Acanthosis nigricans.
I think you might have said it at the very beginning.
Carp? SK?
What else
Skin
looks kind of like an SK, but it isn't an SK?
Kind of like an SK.
Everything you said is right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we want to complete the list. What if I told you this was in the groin of a 25-year-old man?
Oh, acanthosis, is that what I said? Acanthosis?
Well, what if I said it was on his penile shaft? Where he'd been visiting people he shouldn't have been visiting in the evening.
Condyloma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Condyloma. And that's what this is. This is a condyloma.
Some coilocytes, because that's what I thought. I saw some kind of cleared out cells.
Well, that's a good point because, it's nice when you see them. But you do not see them very frequently in condyloma, actually. You see this kind of pattern. It's gentle papillomatosis, acanthosis, and it looks a lot like a seborrheic keratosis, but it's not a seborrheic keratosis. It's a condyloma. So it goes to show that that HPV-induced lesions can take on a number of different forms. Because they look like classic group vulgaris, where they get the large amounts of coilocytic change and digitation, not just papillomatosis. Or they can look like this, little small dome-shaped papules with papillomatosis on the surface with minimal, if any, coralicytic change. So there's some things, if you look for them and you don't see them, and you say, well, there's none of that there, therefore it can't be that, well, it still can be that. Mycosis fungoides, you don't have to always get epidermotropism. You don't have to get atypical lymphocytes in mycosis fungoides. So in this condition, you don't have to have coralicytes, and it still is a condyloma. Now, what if it had a lot of atypical cells in it? What would you call it then? It looked like cancer arising.
STC? Or
What if it looked like cancer arising in a condyloma? What's the diagnosis then?
yeah.
No, that's a type of verrucous carcinoma that's a giant condyloma. So, but if it's, and that doesn't actually have a lot of atypia, interestingly enough. But if it just looked like a small condyloma, it's got a lot of atypical cells in it. What's the diagnosis?
Erythrodysplasia?
Well, that's different.
Oh,
That's a type of
different,
squamous
yeah.
cell carcinoma. Bonoid papulosis. Bonoid papulosis is a squamous cell carcinoma situ arising in a condyloma, a papular lesion. Okay, so we have some clinical photos here also to go through. That's what these look like. Okay, and you all know the types of HPVs, so make sure you know that. The boards love to ask about those. So acanthosis, papillomatosis, and if you get them, it's good, vacuolated coriocytes, but you don't always have to have them. Okay. So good. One other thing that you mentioned epidermal nevus. When you see like a lot of those lesions kind of together, just on a biopsy, that's a good thing to think about. So that very well could have been an epidermal nevus also. Okay, 34.
Alright, so this is a shave from low power. The dermis looks pretty busy.
Good. So when you say busy,
It's very cellular.
cellular, so you think it's more of an inflammatory or a neoplastic process sitting in you?
Neoplastic.
Neoplastic, good.
Um,
Benign or malignant, just based on this?
looks benign.
Yeah, how come?
It's pretty well circumscribed.
Absolutely, good. It's fairly well circumscribed. We don't know about the base of this thing, but assuming this is the bulk of it, and it's very symmetrical.
Yeah.
So you fold this side on the other, pretty much the same. Now, do you think it's epithelial or non-epithelial?
Non.
Non, good, excellent. As we go to higher magnification, what's the morphology of these cells? What do they look like? What shape are they?
They're kind of cigar shaped.
Yeah, they are good. They're kind of spindle shaped.
Yeah.
And then you go even higher magnification, yeah, they look kind of blunt ended, sort of like cigars. And what about the color of the cytoplasm?
Kind of gray blue-ish.
Some sort of is, but what color is that right there?
Pink.
Pink. Good. Here's some collagen that's pink. This is a little lighter pink, isn't it? It's got a slightly grayish pink, and that's bright pink. So, and here's red. Red cells. We have 3 different shades of red. Pink,
See, look.
lighter pink, a little bit of
This is
gray,
how-
like we said, and then you've got this bright red.
And look, you just make it.
And then there are some unusual cells in there, aren't there?
One. That. And then you can do this.
Hyperchromatic.
And this is the PowerPoint.
Another one here. Another one here.
Where is it though?
So what kind of differentiation do you think this was?
He's just waiting for the next case to
When
come
I
up.
first looked from low power, I thought it was dermatopathology.
Okay.
When I looked
15.
closer, I mean, I didn't really see
Isn't that neat?
great perinuclear halos in any of the cross section because I was thinking some of it looked like smooth muscle.
And there may be a little bit of that
Yeah.
there, but you're right. These are kind of cigar blood-ended.
Yeah.
They're not like delicate S-shaped, spindle-shaped cells
Yeah.
like you see with nerve, and they're not sort of angulated, spiky spindle
Like
cells like you see
fibroblasts.
with fibrohistiocytes.
Yeah, so I ended up thinking it was kind of smooth muscle, so
Good.
you can get, I mean, leiomyomas or leiomyosarcomas that have
Excellent.
atypia in them. And you don't need a lot in a leiomyosarcoma.
Yeah. Now, do you like leiomyosarcoma in this case? It's small. It's
Not
symmetrical.
really.
No, but it's got atypical cells in it.
Yeah.
So our friends in the soft tissue pathology world have come up with a very unique name for this. They call these atypical leiomyomas. Because they're atypical, but when they arise in the skin like this, they have these atypical pleomorphic cells, they almost never cause any harm to the patient. So they look ugly. If we saw this, we'd probably recommend removal, but it's probably sort of analogous to some like old compound nevi that get ancient change and they look weird, but they never really become melanoma or anything like that. So most likely the same sort of concept.
But it shouldn't have mitoses.
You might get one or two.
You can get one or two,
If you
but
start getting light, you might. See, that's, sometimes they use different criteria than we do. They start counting mitoses. Well, there's 5 mitoses if there has to be a sarcoma. Well, yes and no. A lot of them can be very ugly like this with mitotic features, but they never can metastasize. So cutaneous leiomyomas, cutaneous atypical leiomyomas, they're different animals than internal leiomyosarcomas. Here's an example of one that wasn't necessarily an atypical one clinically. You know, they often look more plaque-like or patchy lesions as opposed to being nodular. So anyway, the only thing about this, it looks like a regular leiomyoma, it's just got some atypical pleomorphic leaf letting. We could go down the differential diagnosis of all the pleomorphic tumors, but I'll spare you guys that this morning. Okay. Who's going to get the low power diagnosis, high power mind award this morning?
I can go for it. I'm not sure I have the right diagnosis for this.
Oh, you'll get it right.
So
We're going to educe it from you.
all right, let's go. So we have a punch biopsy. Non-apical skin. I think from this power I cannot see much on the epidermis, maybe a little bit acanthotic.
Good.
And there is a superficial perivascular, what appears to be mostly lymphocytic infiltrate.
Yeah, and that's a superficial perivascular dermatitis.
Yeah.
And notice,
I noticed
now
that
this is really where you have to have
Yeah,
a low
this
power
is-
diagnosis, high power mind.
this looks like scar, and that I noticed that there was like change in the collagen right above the sebaceous
might be.
gland.
Could be, that makes me a little perifollicular like fibrosis. But notice that this takes really good, we're going to look at this high magnification in a second, but you tell the difference between these cells and these cells? There's
Yeah.
a subtle difference. These are dark black,
Yeah.
jet black. These are jet black.
Yeah.
And these are slightly paler,
Mhm.
slightly, maybe slightly even kind of pinkish a little bit. So these cells have a little different character than these.
Mhm.
So we're going to go to higher magnification.
All right.
So that's a low power sort of pearl. I mean, and now let's take a look. So you can tell the difference between the cells. These are definitely lymphocytes here.
Yeah.
But look at these cells. Are these lymphocytes?
They look more like fibroblasts.
They look a little different, don't
Yeah.
they? Some of them may be fibroblasts, but let's look at higher magnification.
Is that an EO?
There's one EO. Good.
Yeah.
And now look at them. We've got kind of so that's not the same kind of round nucleus as a lymphocyte, is it?
No.
It's kind of elongated. And notice that there's kind of this strands of cytoplasm extending beyond it.
Mhm.
And look at this one. This also looks like a fried egg. It's got this sort of slightly pinkish granular cytoplasm.
That looks more like a mast cell
Good.
compared to the other.
Mast cell. They're all mast cells here.
Okay.
So you can tell the difference between these cells
And this.
and the lymphocytes here. See, these are completely different. These are jet black, dark, pure DNA
Mhm.
here with no cytoplasm, whereas these have the cytoplasm. So even at low power, you can tell there's a little bit different. Now, what about the epidermis?
The epidermis looks a little bit hyperpigmented.
Yes. So what's the diagnosis?
Urticaria pigmentosa.
Yeah, urticaria pigmentosa. It's pigmentosa because of this. Why does this happen? I don't know. Sometimes you don't know. I don't know. Anybody done any research as to why the skin gets pigmented in urticaria pigmentosa? It might be something therapeutically useful. You know, maybe people with vitiligo. What if we rubbed some kind of mast cell product on their skin? Maybe it might treat them. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. You know, sometimes you learn stuff under the microscope that's clinically useful. So anyway, if we did a stain on this, all of these cells would light up. Not just a couple. Everything lights up. So if you just have a normal number of mast cells, which we all have, you may get one or two in every little, around every blood vessel. That's when you get hundreds, thousands like this, even in T-neck, you can see a lot. Almost every cell in that infiltrate is a mast cell. And here's some clinical photos of it. And there's a Derrier sign, which is beautiful. Okay. So anyway, I don't know why they get pigmentation. Not every case of urticarial pigmentosis, of mastocytosis gets pigment in there, so it's only in this specific subtype. So anyway, so you got it right. See, you didn't get an answer. Just had to pull it out of you a little bit. Okay, this one is a gimme.
So this one is.
So we'll just have to figure out something else here.
Shelled out, like the pilar cyst.
Good. Now, is there anything else about it that
It has
strikes
some
your eye?
real dark purple in the middle and around the edges. There's some calcium deposits, maybe.
Yeah, is that all calcium?
I'm guessing no.
Yeah, of course. Whenever the professor asks, was like, you know, the answer is no.
It's not calcium. And
Now, some of it is a lot of it is calcium. This is for sure. That is. But what calcium is purple. And here we got some stuff that's pink. We talked about pink smooth muscle cells. We talked about collagen being pink. We got pink here. This is pink. What's this stuff? So it's a cyst.
Yeah.
Trichilemmal cyst, because it's got the lining that looks like that of the outer root sheath of the hair follicle with glycogen in it. So what is actually happening right here? What's the process that's going on right here?
Keratinization.
Yes. And it's not forming the same kind of keratin pattern that's occurring from your epidermis to your stratum corneum, right? This is more like cornification that's forming a hair shaft. So this is analogous to, this is follicular cornification, and it's down near the level of the isthmus. That's why we call it the isthmus catagen cyst. Is another name for this, as opposed to trichilemmal cyst. So this is keratin. So now we'll go back over here, and we got something else that's pink. You think this is keratin?
It's a little bit different shade of pink.
It is slightly different, isn't it? Yeah. It's got a couple cells inside it. Unless it's parakeratosis, you wouldn't expect that, would you? So we got calcium, and then it's kind of turning pink. It's got these little tiny cells within it and little small canals in it. Anybody have any idea?
It's bone.
Yes, it's bone. So it's undergoing ossification. Good. And what's this stuff? What's this? We go to higher magnification.
Bone marrow.
Good. You even got a red cell that's forming here. So you got bone ossification, dystrophic ossification within a trichilemmal cyst. It's actually forming a small amount of bone marrow in it. And there actually have been cases where people have diagnosed leukemia in a patient with dystrophic ossification in the bone marrow. So you don't have to actually do a bone marrow biopsy if they've got any abnormality in there.
Just building stuff.
Anyway, it's kind of cool. So this is just a garden variety trichilemmal cyst. It's got bone that's dystrophic, and they actually have bone marrow. So these are just some examples of trichilemmal cysts. You all know what they look like. There's really not a lot to be said about these, except we saw last month, I think, one of the proliferating trichilemmal tumors that can simulate squamous cells. So not a squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, very good. Now you know all about bone. Let's see if you know all about this.
Okay, so we have a shave, a papule here. In the dermis, there is a proliferation of basaloid cells. It's well circumscribed. And there are also kind of these areas of sort of light pink material in them.
Good.
And this is a spiradenoma.
Yeah, eccrine spironoma.
You can see
Very
it's
good.
peppered with some lymphocytes, and that's kind of the hyaline or basal membrane material. Ducts as well.
Yeah, so this is a slightly different pink yet again than the other that we've had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think this stuff is?
Just like basement membrane material.
It's probably type 4 collagen,
Type 4 collagen.
which is in the basal membrane zone area. So there's some little blood vessels in here as well. So it's kind of like the same sort of stuff you get around the blood vessels in porphyria cutaneous tarda. So little pink globules are seen in association with this. So this, would the patient have any reason to have this biopsy?
Can be painful.
Yeah, good, excellent. What are some of the other painful tumors?
So
You guys know that mnemonic,
the
right?
bangles, reticular blue rubber blab,
Good.
angiolipoma.
Is blue rubber bleb really painful, you think? We don't have to talk about that, but
Not sure. Never happened.
why would the blue rubber bleb nevus syndrome be painful, actually? What's the other one when you get to the G?
Globus.
Yeah, probably what really is happening in a lot of those patients is they have multiple gloma syndromes. So if you look at really true blue rubber bleb nevus syndrome patients, I've seen a couple, they usually aren't painful, most of them. So it's probably that
The
there's
glomus.
multiple glomus tumors in those situations. So it's probably not always painful. Anyway.
Neuroland also.
Now, is there any syndrome that you have to worry about with this?
Brooke Spiegler.
Yeah, Brooke Spiegler. I hope we don't do away with everybody's name. Like, it's too bad. I didn't realize Dr. Gottfried was a bad guy. You know, I guess now I know he's a bad actor also. I'll have to figure out another reason to call some other name, maybe. Anyway,
What
so
was
that's
it,
an
Dirtbag
econ
Pepper?
spider. No, we got a picture of that. That's kind of what they do look like. They're often kind of brownish blue. It's a little different than a typical basal cell carcinoma. It's really almost like a Spitz's nevus a little bit. And then clinical features here, as you know, and then you don't necessarily have to re-excise these. Sometimes you'll see spironoma and cylindroma in the same biopsy, and in my experience, those are the ones that are more likely associated with the Brooke Spiegler situation. Okay.
Alright, so this is a punch, deep punch down into the fat.
Yeah, it's into the fat. Is anywhere else?
Vessel, septum.
So here's fat, and then you're actually, what lives beneath the fat?
Fascia.
Yeah. Sometimes that may be helpful. This guy deserves an A+ for biopsy.
Yeah.
They did a punch, and they got all the way down into the deep part of the fascia. That's unusual. You know, we get punches that kind of go this far sometimes. You know, people don't work out that do that. They can't push it in as far as you need to. But, you know, if you're really going to take a punch, you want to get all the way to the fat. And if you get biopsy paniculitis, or something even more deeper than paniculitis, you got to bury that thing all the way to the white plastic. You got to get it into the plastic part. So we're dealing with something beneath the fat here, right?
Yeah. So when I look at it first, I was thinking it was going to be a paniculitis, but I mean, the fat was kind of spared. I was thinking to have this septal paniculitis. But then when I look closer, it's very cellular here.
Yeah, now you're the spindle cell guy
yeah.
this morning.
Yeah.
So let's compare these to the other
So
spindle
I thought
cells.
these all kind of look fibroblasts
Yeah,
in nature.
and they got a pink cytoplasm too
Yeah.
in some areas. In other areas, it's kind of slightly bluish gray. And notice these are spindle-shaped cells too, but they vary in size and shape. They're not really uniform. There's really not a lot of pleomorphism here.
Yeah.
Some of them kind of have sharp, spiky ends to them. Others are
Yeah.
kind of more loose chromatin pattern. So these would be more fibroblasts and probably myofibroblasts.
Yeah, so there's a lot of blood, pigment.
Good, good. What pigment do you think this is?
Hemosiderin.
Excellent. Hemosiderin. Let's look at the other side over here. Boy, lots of blood here, right?
Yeah.
This stuff looks almost like a tissue culture.
Yeah.
Those cells are in mitosis. Is this sarcoma now?
No, I thought it was nodular fasciitis.
Good, you thought right. Excellent. What's the other name for that? It's got all this inflammation here.
I don't remember.
So sometimes you'll look at these and you'll see a lot of mitotic figures and it's really pretty atypical. The history is usually a rapidly developing thing that comes about after trauma. So sometimes because it looks like cancer, it gets called pseudosarcomatous fasciitis.
Okay.
And so sometimes it can be really atypical. If you don't get any decent history, you can make the diagnosis of sarcoma. So just beware of that. So basically, if you ever bonk your head, or those of you that have kids, bonk your head, if you were to biopsy that bump, that's what it looks like. It goes away usually pretty quickly. So we have a photograph. These things, you can't see them clinically. You have to feel them. Most of the time they'll go away pretty fast, but sometimes they'll stick around for a while. And anyway, sometimes you can get it in the dermis. You can get dermal nodular fasciitis, or the fat. It's spelled, there's 2 eyes, 3 eyes. Fasciitis. And then next slide, you can see the histology, which is very characteristic. You do often get that myxoid features to these lesions. So in a myxoid spindle cell neoplasm, there are other things you want to put in a differential diagnosis. Obviously, sarcoma, MFH, myxoid malignant fibrocystic those are things that you have to make sure you're not missing the diagnosis. So whenever there's a soft tissue neoplasm in a dermatologist, often the outcome is bad. So you want to make sure that there's good history in those situations.
The sarcoma should just have more hypochromatic cells and more
It's very large,
Large
polycircumscribed,
cells.
asymmetrical. It's not going to just be in the fascia only, and lots of atypical cells, not much inflammatory infiltrate.
Well, it is me again.
Yes.
And I have no clue what this is, but
Oh,
work
you
is.
certainly will have a clue.
Alright, so punch biopsy.
Okay.
And we have a so non-nickel skin, and from this power I can see that there is a superficial and deep infiltrate.
Yeah. What kind of cells are these?
So there are some lymphocytes, but there are also other cells.
Good, good, good. So you can tell right away. We
Yeah.
saw lymphocytes versus mast cells
Yeah.
in your last one. Now we've got perhaps a few lymphocytes, but these clearly are not jet black dark cells here. And there's a lot of other stuff going on here too.
There's red blood cells.
Red blood cells.
Yeah.
Not much epidermal involved.
Not much. There was a little interface that I thought it was interface changes, but that was
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but mostly it's a dermal based
Yeah.
inflammatory infiltrate, and it
Yeah.
seems to be around blood vessels, and it's kind of perivascular interstitial, and it also extends around this blood vessel.
exactly.
So you know a lot more than you're leading on. I think you're sandbagging us here a little bit.
Sandbag, that's an expression you'll have to explain later.
That means where you're really better than you really think you are. Like
Okay.
guys on the golf course, they're really like pro golfers, and they go out and they kind of pretend they're not very good, and they get a big bet, and then they turn it on.
Okay.
So that's what you're telling you know what it is. I think you do know more about it.
So I thought there were some vasculitic changes, but
See, you do know what it is.
I saw a lot of eosinophils.
Yeah, they're EOs. What other kind of cells did you see here?
Some nudes.
A lot of nudes.
Yeah.
And then what else? What's this? A little teensy tiny dot there. Over here.
So nuclear debris.
Nuclear dust.
Yeah, nuclear.
Yeah, leukocytoclasia. And then what's going on in these blood vessels?
They are necrotic or
Yeah. There's necrosis of the vascular wall. There's thrombosis of the lumen. There's fibrin deposition.
Yeah.
So we have the classic features of what disease here?
So we have that it's consistent with leukocytoclastic
Leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Right. So you knew exactly what it was. See, you were sandbagging.
Well, well, but
Now, once you get that far,
then,
you may be able to tell a little bit more, depending on some things, but you may not. You may not.
so
So just up here,
yeah,
what's causing the LCD? Can you tell?
not really.
Good. No. So when an internist calls you on consults,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got a diagnosis of LCD and says what's causing it, you can argue with him. You can say you don't know anything about medicine because you think that I should be able to tell you based on the pathology what's causing his vasculitis. You need to make sure he doesn't have lupus or he wasn't taking a drug that caused this, doesn't have an infection causing it. So all sorts of things can cause it. We don't know. Now, when you get a large blood vessel involved also, you can maybe tell them, well, there's also small vessel vasculitis and medium-sized vessel vasculitis, so that does expand your differential diagnosis a little bit.
Yeah.
So what can give you this situation?
I was thinking when I saw this large blood vessel, I thought Church-Strauss.
It's possible, because they're EOs.
Yeah, but I couldn't find any granuloma.
That's good. You don't see that, and sometimes you don't see granulomatous vasculitis in Wegener's or Church-Strauss. I'm sorry, but I'm going to continue to use these guys' names. So I'm too programmed, so I'm going to say this could be Wegener's or Church-Strauss. And shame on them if they were criminals. But anyway, this could well be one of those two diseases when you get a large vessel involved. Okay? It could even be polyarteritis nodosa.
Okay.
Because there's two forms of PAN. There's the small vessel LCV type, and there's the large vessel type.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get inflammation in the wall of the blood vessel like this, it means they have vasculitis. You don't have to have thrombosis of the lumen, or you have to have fibrin in a larger vessel. All you got to do is get inflammation. Blood cells, the white blood cells, are not normally going across the wall of the large blood vessel. They are in the small blood vessel.
Mm-hmm.
But here, you've got vasculitis. It's probably primary because there's not a lot of inflammation around this area also. So this is supposed to be Wegener's. You couldn't tell that for sure, but when you get the larger blood vessel, you start thinking about Church-Strauss. So you did know the answer. So I'm never going to place a bet with you because I'll know you're going to pretend like you're a lousy soccer player, and then you're going to turn it on in the second half and wipe me out. So anyway, we have a couple of photos of this. So they often will ulcerate, get larger blood vessels, often the stellate purpura, gunmetal gray when you get an infarct. Next slide, show you the stuff. So anyway, you all know the systemic clinical features of Wegener's or Church-Strauss. Often get upper respiratory tract involved. They get the ANCA positivity, C-ANCA, very commonly in this, and then the changes that we just saw in the microscope. Okay, so next.
Okay, so we have a punch biopsy of non-ankle skin. I guess it's some kind of serum crust on top, some type. There.
Now we say it's non-atrial skin.
It could be.
It actually could be pretty close to an atrial skin.
It's just missing
right?
some of the.
Yeah. What's usually not seen on atrial skin? Everybody likes to look at the cornified layers and say that it's not. I like to say basically trunk or proximal extremity, and then say it is acral if it is, but rather than non-acral. I like to start off with positive things or the negative things. So trunk or proximal, or maybe even distal extremity here, because there is actually some thick cornified layer. And what's the pattern? Inflammatory or non-inflammatory?
Inflammatory.
Yeah. And then the inflammatory disease patterns, what pattern are we looking at here?
Sort of patchy lichenoid.
Yeah, it is kind of like you're correct. It's also got a little deep involvement here.
Sorry, but I think I would more categorize it into superficial and deep.
Superficial and deep, infiltrate. But what about the epidermal changes?
There is some necrosis of the epidermis.
There is some necrosis, and so the epidermis can necrose from a number of different reasons.
And on closer inspection, we see some cellular changes in the keratinocytes.
We sure do. What kind of cellular changes?
There's some molding of the chromatin.
Nuclear molding. The chromatin is molding at the periphery of the nucleus. That's good.
There's multinucleation.
Multinucleation. These cells look like they're filling up with fluid too. What do we call that? Ballooning degeneration.
degeneration.
Ballooning, and some of these cells are falling apart from one another. So what do we call that?
Acantholysis.
Excellent. So we have ballooning degeneration, multinucleated cells, acantholysis. What's the diagnosis?
HSV.
Perfect. Or just herpes virus
Or herpes.
infection.
Yeah. Could be easy.
Human herpes virus. I mean, we talk about herpes virus infection. That's really probably wrong because there are lots of herpes viruses, and this certainly is not Epstein-Barr virus, which is in the family of herpes virus family. So this is either HSV or possibly VZV.
VZV.
Could be either one. Really can't tell that under the microscope. So anyway, very good. The inflammation, you get lots of patterns of inflammation with herpes virus infection. You get lichen, you get vasculitis, you get granulomatous. Sometimes you get the herpes heals, and they get post-herpetic inflammatory reaction that lasts for a long time. So this is a beautiful example of herpes virus infection.
Dr. Cockerell, sometimes you talk about ghost viral cells.
Yeah, sometimes in a late stage lesion where the cells are kind of dead and there's really not too many active cells, you may just see a few cells like this. These are the ghosts of dead cells. Walking Dead here. The ghosts here. But sometimes you'll see like a shave biopsy, rule out basal cell, it's an ulcerated lesion, a late stage herpes, and you'll just see maybe a few of these. And still make the diagnosis of herpes infection in that situation. So very nice example of it. If you get a herpes virus infection that's like the Cleveland variant where it's horrible, bad, think about that the person might be immunocompromised. That upper left, Kaposi's varicella eruption type of situation. So, and then my little child, that might be the first infection that the kid had. And then those ulcerated lesions on the buttock area. So anyway, chronic verrucous lesions in HIV positive patients, those things can look like a cancer. They look verrucous and look like a neoplasm clinically. One more slide. You guys know this. So remember the different kinds of inflammatory reactions you can see with herpes. Okay, very good. Who's up now?
I got a shave, nodal papule looks like.
Good.
Looks like the action's there in the dermis.
Think it's neoplastic or inflammatory process?
I think it's neoplastic.
Good.
And it's
Benign or malignant?
well, it's pretty well circumscribed, but
Yeah, I mean it looks benign.
yeah.
Is this so? Okay, you probably know the answer, but is it going to behave in a malignant way in a likely situation here?
Probably not really.
Probably not. It's small. It's well circumscribed. It's
Yeah.
symmetrical. This lesion may be kind of developed as a proliferative lesion. It's got a cancerous name to it, but it's not cancerous in the sense like a melanoma. It starts in one place and spreads throughout the body. It's a different kind of cancer than that. What kind of differentiation?
It's a little paler. It's hard to tell with all the blood in there.
Okay, it's got a lot of blood. It's got a lot of little slits here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see that at low power,
So vascular.
think vascular. Good.
Yeah.
So vascular.
And would you say that that's slammed up against the epidermis? Is that?
I don't like to
Qualifier,
use
no.
words that sound like World Wrestling Foundation that kind of stuff, but you can say that it is quite close to the epidermis. There's cells that are present in the papillodermis, very just beneath the epidermis, but not actually involving the epidermis. There's some scale crust. And we're always talking about volar skin. That's what this is probably not actually volar skin, but it could be near volar skin. It's got a thick cornified layer over here. It's got a follicle, so it couldn't be volar skin itself. So it's either rubbed or it's maybe like, say, on the hand, that's maybe the dorsal surface of the hand. You have a thick cornified layer, dorsal foot possibly. So it's vascular. And you've got these fascicles of, again, spindle-shaped cells. Now, we talked about muscle spindle. We talked about fibrohistiocytes and myofibroblasts and nodular fasciitis. What kind of spindle cells are these?
Spindle cells can also be melanocytes.
right? But these aren't melanocytes, right?
No. Nerve.
Nerve, yeah, we talked about, these isn't nerve either, right?
No.
One
Small
more.
muscle.
So these are blood vessels, right?
Yeah.
So they're, what kind of cells are these then? What cells make up the blood vessel? Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Go back to
I'm just overthinking everything.
histology in college, you know, you have blood vessels, so what's lining the blood vessel? Endothelial cells, right?
Yeah.
So these are endothelial cells. So those also can be spindle. So you have spindle cell, endothelial cells also. So what's the diagnosis? Are you get fascicles of atypical spindle endothelial cells, some surrounding pre-existing blood vessels, like here and here. What's the diagnosis? Anybody know?
Kaposi?
Yeah, this is Kaposi sarcoma. And Kaposi sarcoma is not like angiosarcoma. What's the cause of KS? Yeah, HHV8. So it's basically an infection that causes these. They can kill the patient, all right, but it doesn't kill the patient like a melanoma or squamous cell carcinoma. And one other thing I was trying to point out, these slit-like vascular spaces, extravasated erythrocytes, or plasma cells in here. This is nodular stage Kaposi's, mitotic figure, and you get the so-called promontory sign. Pre-existing blood vessels surrounded by these spindle-shaped neoplastic blood vessels, spindle-shaped cells.
Could you show us that again?
Yeah, I'll
Still have
trying
such
to find a
hard
good
time
one
with that.
for you. It's really kind of better in plaque stage lesions, but you know, maybe here, there's probably a pre-existing vessel here, and these are all the spindle cells
Around it, okay.
Not as great.
So it doesn't have to be two open spaces. It just has to be
Yeah, it's a
pre-existing
pre-existing
vessel.
normal blood vessel surrounded by the neoplastic.
the neoplastic endothelial.
Yeah, that's
cells.
basically what it is. And promontory kind of refers to like a little small peninsula. That's what it refers to. Got some photos of KS. So this is plaque stage disease, which is not what we have here with nodular stage disease. Okay. So anyway, there's patch, plaque, nodular, there's the angiomatous form, there's a lot of different forms of KS. Okay.
Alright, so this is shave, papule,
Good. Might even be a little small plaque, right?
yeah. Looks inflammatory.
It's definitely an inflammatory component. I wonder if you just had this part right here.
Looks like lentigo there.
Yeah, and there's solar alteration of dermis. So
Yeah.
what kind of lentigo?
Solar,
Solar lentigo. Solar lentigo plus, what do we have here?
be okay.
Good. Benign lichen keratosis. What's the other name for that?
Pseudo-basal cell.
Well, clinically that's true. I'm not sure that's a true name.
I mean, lichenoid keratosis.
Yeah, no, but benign lichen keratosis, lichen planus-like keratosis is the other name. LPLK, we used to call them that. And that's basically because it looks like lichen plants. If you just had this, and I said it's a widespread eruption of clinical papules,
Yeah.
diagnosed LP.
Yeah, there
So
wasn't
if
a
one
bunch
lesion
of-
looks like blue basal cell, be okay. So they can look the same. The key is not only the clinical, it's also if you see the background features of solar lentigo or macular SK off to the side.
Yeah, there was no wedge-shaped hypergranulosis that I really saw.
Well, you can get that though. Don't be careful about that because you don't want to use. See, there is some wedge-shaped hypergranulosis here. It can look exactly like lichen planus in high power. I mean, it can look just. I mean, I could show you photomicrographs you miss every single time because it can really look exactly like lichen planus.
So then, how do you tell?
Clinical is key, and if there's a feature of background solar lentigo, like here, that's very helpful.
You shouldn't have that in.
Generally, you don't see that in lichen planus. Okay, so not that common in real life. So this is what they look like clinically, obviously. They are pseudobasal cells clinically. They come in as rui basal. So nobody sends these in as BLK unless they're a genius. Because most dermatologists are not trained to look for this. They're trained to look for basal cells and carcinoma in situ. And they don't really teach residents the benign simulators of this. They don't teach the fact that rosacea on the face looks like a basal cell clinically when you biopsy it and it turns out to be inflammatory. So those are some other things that you learn about in your residency, used a lot of times after your residency. Lichenoid drug can look like that. Okay.
Alright, so
This one's really easy. This is for a first month resident. So
Alright.
third year to get it, it's gonna be boring for you.
this is a shape biopsy. And there's a hyperkeratosis, papillomatosis, and
Yeah, this might even be digitation here.
yeah, and it look like viral changes, like collocytes.
Good. So three viral diseases today. One with ballooning and multinucleated giant cells. One with no viral changes, basically except architecture. And then we've got this one that's got collocytic change. So what's the diagnosis?
HPV.
Okay. And what other, so I have to make it a little bit hard for you, what other epidermal reaction pattern simulates collocytic change?
Hold on. Like these persistent like keratohyalin granules, you mean?
Okay, where do you see keratohyalin granules in epidermal changes? And it's not HPV induced.
I can't recall right now.
Anybody recall?
Yes.
Yeah, epidermolytic hyperkeratosis. Sometimes that looks sort of like the collocytic change of a wart. And they can get papillomatosis in that condition too. You know, those people that get that systematized epidermal nevus or congenital sickness for derma, they can get papillomatosis and get epidermolytic hyperkeratosis. It kind of look like a wart, so you don't want to make that erroneous diagnosis. Here you get the nice examples of the dilated tortuous blood vessels with thin suprapapillary plates and the mound of perikeratosis at the tips. So if you look for the black dots when you hair these things down, as they get the clinical, that's why they get black, is because you get erythema. See, there's some black dots in that one little finger there. Nice example, group of vulgaris. You must know the HPV types. You must know them. So be prepared. Go ahead and take it to the bank. You're going to be asked that on the board. Okay. It's got two more to go. The pain is almost over. The dental appointment is almost finished. Your teeth are almost finished drilling now. Who wants to give this one a go?
Here we have a shape biopsy.
Good.
What stands out, the epidermis looks
Normal.
normal. What stands out is this infiltrated dark blue cells of
Perfect.
the dermis.
Good.
Almost kind of nodular.
Nodular. Excellent. It's a little pale area here too. Okay.
So I would think it's probably a mixed infiltrate.
Good.
So from this power we can see
And it is mixed, right? What are some of these other cells in here?
histiocytes and some eos.
Yeah, a lot of EOs. Lots of EOs.
Some newts as well here and there.
Yeah, not so many
Not
newts.
very many, but
Not
there's a
too
couple.
many histiocytes, but you kind of got some paler cells a little bit larger here. So what do you think's going on here?
So I thought because of the eos, it made me think of an arthropod
Yeah,
salt.
good. So an arthropod assault, and if they hang around for a lot longer and start to form a nodule, like a nodular scabies, or they get really big, like after a tick bite, what do you call that?
Persistent.
But if they form a nodule like
Papular.
this, with eos, and even begin to form a germinal center here, a little bit.
Like a pseudolymphoma?
Yeah, pseudolymphoma. Also known as lymphocytoma cutis. Spiegler fence sarcoid. That's an old name. That's the same Spiegler, by the way, as the Brooke Spiegler guy, so he's pretty prolific.
He was back
So, pseudolymphoma. Yeah, maybe he's a bad actor also. I don't know. We'll read about him too. Not everybody that did Derm was bad, you know. So. And here's what they look like on their ear. For example, and yeah, actually we see these pretty commonly in the ear. Pierce their ear, and they get a secondary pseudolymphoma from reaction to metal, especially if they have nickel in those ears, in the earrings, and they end up getting this kind of change. This is what it looks like under the microscope. Totally benign. The only caveat is that follicle center cell lymphoma and basal zone lymphoma can sometimes look like pseudolymphoma. You still don't get the EOs. You get the EOs and the dermal center all stuff, you're pretty much home free. But they can look pretty bland, those lymphomas, and they generally have a low-grade biologic behavior, but sometimes they'll actually pop up with a lesion somewhere else. So just beware that that can simulate lymphocytoma cutis or pseudolymphoma. Very good. And one last one here. It's also pretty easy. End up with a softball. So we have KS. Is this KS? I heard someone whisper no in a very confident way. Of course it's not Kaposi sarcoma. There's no slit-like vascular spaces. There are these round lobular proliferations of capillaries. It's got a fibromucinous myxoid stroma. It's got a collarette of epithelium. It's got a central area crust. What's the diagnosis?
Pyogenic granuloma.
Yeah, pyogenic granuloma. And what's a histologic close, almost identical twin of pyogenic granuloma? That's probably a tough question, but what if there's a lot of neutrophils? We start looking at magnification. There's some pink amorphous granular material, and it's a HIV positive patient.
Bacillary.
Yeah, bacillary intestine looks very, very much like pyogenic granuloma, but it's got those other few features that help you. This has a few polys. If somebody sent this in as rule out BA, I'd probably get a special stain. What stain would I order? What stains the organisms in BA beautifully? We used to actually, when we first saw it, we thought it was an artifact. You know, we're the first ones to ever do electron microscopy on it. We saw the organisms in there.
Is it Wharton Story?
Yeah, Worth and Starry. That's one of the few cases where it's not worthless and sorry. It's worthless and sorry with syphilis. There actually is an anti-Bartonella stain now too, immunofluoxetine stain. And the other thing that can look a lot like PG is intravascular pyogenic granuloma, Masson's tumor. Masson was a nice guy. He was not a bad guy. Anyway, so that's pyogenic granuloma. You all know what that looks like now. All right. Any questions? You survived. True dreamers are here this morning. Very good.
Thank you, Dr. Cockerell.
Thank you, guys. And you can download this for those of you who are online that want to listen to it. Download it later. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no lecture Friday, is there?
Oh, this Friday,
Oh, we need
no,
to.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because you guys will all be in.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all gonna be.
Alrighty.
Alright, we'll see you the
Let's-
week.
Thank
Right?
you.
I'm
And that-
Chicago, you going, right? Yes, I'm leaving.
Fun.
Like in a couple hours. I'm so excited.
Oh, yay!
I
I
love
heard the
that
weather was
city.
nice too.
It is gonna be like 50s.
And then
Better than
it's our
Google.
test, right? On November the 4th.